Welcome back. We were not here last week. It is Monday, April 25th.
And well, not for everyone.
Not for everyone. Oh my God. I love that, Rose. 2 years and I'm still calling it Monday.
She forgets.
Tuesday.
That is Tuesday.
Yeah. 5 a.m. for my hero, Rose Hoyte. This is TMS Roundtable Global. My name is Dr. Tovah Goldfine, and I'm thrilled to be here and introduce you to Rose Hoyte, my co-host and professional partner in this amazing work from Australia, Melbourne, down under. She will introduce our guest today.
Hi. Good morning, everyone from Melbourne. Look, Anne Miller witnessed a recovery that is not just a recovery as such, but she can now chronicle her journey for us. And that's the wonderful part about it. She's so articulate and she's so sort of able to actually put it together. It's so delightful to have you, Anne. And, Anne had 30 years or something, and probably more if we...
3 decades, she said.
Yeah, well, that's 30 years, isn't it? And in saying that, Anne actually talks about how she was doing the journaling. But when she did the journaling, she realized she was beating up on herself. And that created that sort of sense of, what am I doing? And thank you, Anne, for coming. And would you please give us a little brief outline of your story so that we can get a gist of what's happening and now the way you're working and the way you're helping people. I actually found Anne on one of those Facebook pages, and the way she wrote to one of the ladies that was saying about her chronic pain and how she couldn't ever feel empathy for herself. And Anne wrote this beautiful little note to her, heartwarming note about her journey. And unfortunately, I didn't save it, but it was just so heartwarming. I had to meet Anne. So thank you for coming on, Anne.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tell us a little about yourself.
It's a pleasure to be here. And, hearts to you for getting up at 5 a.m. to join us all.
4 a.m.
4 a.m. Oh, that's right. Because you gotta get ready and have
live at 5, up at 4.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And as you mentioned, I am a long-time chronic pain sufferer and now completely pain-free survivor. Just briefly, because I don't like to dwell on symptoms. That's one of our sort of things that we always talk about, is not to dwell too much on symptoms, dwell more on emotions. But I do know people identify with symptoms. So I'm just going to breeze through my laundry list that I had over the 30 years. It started with backaches in my 20s. And really, if you really go back to my teens, I had growing pains. So perhaps it was then too, might even be 40 decades. I had stomach issues, migraines, fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto, adrenal fatigue, laced through all that. I had a bout with dizziness and TMJ. Each one of these things, of course, brings its own round of doctors, round of specialists, round of treatments. So it just goes on and on and on, as we know it does, right? It's just one giant distraction from what the real issue is. Interestingly, in the journey, about 10, 15 years before I discovered TMS, when I got the fibromyalgia diagnosis, the doctor then talked to me about stress and depression and anxiety, and I shut her down. I did not want to hear it. That was not me. I was not stressed. I was just in pain. And if she could cure my pain, I wouldn't be stressed anymore. That's I'll never forget it.
Egg before the chicken.
That's right. And so I think of that now when I, talk to people and tell them my story and I see a little disbelief walk across their face. I'm like, yeah, I know. I didn't believe it either. So no judgment. You'll get there eventually. But the real impetus to find this was crippling back pain. In 2017, I rolled over in bed, which is, very strenuous thing to do, and had a complete back seizure and spasm, and I could not get up out of bed. Thought I was going to have to call the fire department, and it started a whole round of medication, MRIs, surgeries, injections, you name it, on the low back. And I kind of limped my way through all of 2017. It happened in July of 2017. And
in the
July,
summer, in your summertime.
In my summertime.
When
in July,
relaxing and enjoying life and having a rest.
In July of 2018, I had sort of gotten myself, able to do things. It still hurt every day, but I was able to get around and do my responsibilities. The same thing happened again the following July, a year later. And so it led me to, and I was bedbound, and it led me to ask, why July?
Yes.
And that was the door that opened a crack. That
oh, wow. How lovely.
Yes, there are some things that happen in July that make me sad. So I Googled back pain and sadness, and up came all of the stuff.
Wow, what a story. All 2 years. I don't think I've heard that exact combination of, because it's always like, what brought you to TMS? That's unusual. Wow. And
right.
Beautiful.
Right. And it was beautiful. And so I began reading. I still had a hard time. At first, I had a hard time believing, as most of us do, that something that feels so physical could have a emotional root, especially after being told by years and years and years that it was a crooked spine or leg length discrepancy or, some little spirochete or bug or something that you had. Epstein-Barr was another one of mine. I mean, everybody's looking for a reason for, why my labs were beautiful. And my pain was high. That was what it was. They would do all this lab work and it was always beautiful, but I felt old. I felt like I was 90 when I was 45. So, So anyway, up came John Sarno and all the rest. And I started to really see myself on the pages of the books that I read, especially the personality traits. I could pretty much go down the line and check all those.
It's clear that personality is not a bad or negative thing.
No,
it's a beautiful thing.
How I am.
So,
right.
Look, in this discussion, would you just sort of go back to when the penny dropped for you, and you actually became aware that this self-destructive behavior, if you call it that, that pain behavior was sort of a driving, it's sort of driven somehow. Can you elaborate on that a little? Because in a way, when you went to the doctor and the doctor suggested that, you were stressed and that you could be anxious, but you denied it. And that's one of the important things to notice, that you deny it. You're going to deny it first. That's the first thing. Very few people just say, oh, yes, that was that terrible week, when my child, something or other happened to my child, or, something happened to my parents. And, it's very, very hard to make that connection. So that denial is part of the personality situation, but it's also part of that driving, like that feeling of being driven to find the solution. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's such a common factor. Yes, there's got to be a medical solution. So the doctor is God. The doctor and the God are sitting up there together in the clouds above us and telling us what's what's wrong. Yeah.
Is your question what drove me to TMS or
well, no, not so much, but
or the doctor rounds.
The difference between recognizing that it was internal instead of external.
Okay.
That moment.
It was the tipping point. We all have our part where we get our belief from. And so for me, the tipping point for me really was the personality traits, where I could see myself and see how that could add stress, and that, it just was, especially the goodest, right? It just wanting to do good things, wanting to be overly responsible for others, then being resentful of it. I mean, it just sort of fit, everything just sort of fit to the T for me. And so I think I was just open and ready. And remember, I'm laying in bed. I got nothing better to do besides, read Dr. Sarno books. And I threw myself kind of in this TMS discovery the same way I had thrown myself into all the other modes. And I see this often in other people too. And there is and at the beginning, that's good. You want to get that information. You want to understand the concepts. You want to understand the brain science and how being, activated into fight or flight on a chronic level, what that does to the hormones and the chemicals in your body, and then that can affect basically any sort of pain or symptom you can imagine. You want to understand that basics, but then you want to stop being that pursuer, right? I see that with people all the time. They program hop from place to place, or they are always looking for more information, and they go to this TMS doctor and then they go to this other TMS doctor, and they keep in that
search, isn't it? It's a terrible search.
That kind of that wheel of there's got to be something more I can do. There's got to be something more I can do. Whereas
someone will have a better idea.
The real work is to then go internal and then go, okay, what am I? If all of this is a big giant distraction from emotions that I deem unsafe, then what are those emotions that I deem unsafe for me personally?
Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the work. And honestly, I call it work. For me, it really was. Some people
it is work.
Have to work at this. I had to work at it. I worked and worked and worked.
And it doesn't end. I'm sure now you get, tell us a little bit, bring us a little bit to the present. So no one gets cured. It's a journey, and you're on that. And I imagine you're just aware and mindful and loving and compassionate.
Well, the beginning way out for me was journaling and meditation. So I immediately started sort of that protocol of writing, the list of past stressors that I had, current day stressors that I have, and then those typical personality traits that drive us, and journaling on those items. And as you were saying, Rose, as I was getting into the journaling, at first it was, it was fine. I didn't really even notice. It was just more of a stress release. Oftentimes there was a lot of tears because I'm going back and kind of re-feeling what I didn't give myself permission to feel at the time. But then I started to notice that I was pretty mean to myself in the journal. And it kind of took a dark turn there for a little while. And that's when I started to really realize that I needed to learn some self-compassion, and I needed to learn it fast and well. And I started to treat myself with compassion at different stages of my life. And I think this is the Facebook thing that you were referring to, maybe, Rose, that I did a little write-up on really how to build self-compassion from the base level up. So for me, it was very easy to give myself compassion as child Anne. I call her Dot because that was my childhood nickname. So it's easy for me to see Dot at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and give Dot a lot of love, understanding.
Right there, $1 million solution. An incredible pill in just a sentence.
Yeah. Look,
how you gave yourself self-love, how you that again. This is
just tiny little, every little age is how I did it. I broke it down as small child, so 5, 6. Then I broke it down as like older child, 9, 10, preteen, teenager, so like 16, 17, college age. I gave myself compassionate young adult, then young mom, because I'm a mother of 2, and then sort of middle-aged woman. I'm 59 and a half now. That's that magic age, right, where all things happen in retirement. So that's my age that I am now. But so around 45 was an age that I put in there. And then up to present day. And I worked, instead of trying to go from childhood dot to current day, I worked my way up each little step, step by step by step by step. And I actually got stalled. And I tell people this all the time when I'm working in the same way with others. Don't be surprised if you get stalled at a certain age. I did, and it's not unusual. And wherever you get stalled, that's great. Spend some time there. And maybe even back up a little bit right before then. So this is not an exercise that you do in 1 or 2 journaling sessions. This is, or however you do it, talk sessions, think sessions, whatever you do for yourself when you go emotionally exploring. This is not a one-time thing. This is a multi-step, kind of a long learning process. And so the step I got stalled at was young working adult, quite frankly, because when I viewed her initially, I viewed her as pretty selfish, pretty self-centered, pretty maybe overly ambitious, and not real in tune with others' feelings. And she drank too much. And so I didn't like that picture of me. It does not jive well with the goodest that I consider myself now, right? So that's why I was stuck there. So it was easy for me to give compassion even through high school. But that part was hard.
Yeah. Within that, could you weave in, because I saw a moment before of that sort of grief that came up in you as you were speaking, that grief for having mistreated yourself. I don't know if you noticed that, but yeah. And it actually came up in front of
it. Via Zoom or whatever this platform is.
How you also were accepting all the different ages, and then, oh no, but I have to judge that one. I have to that one is unforgivable. No negotiation with that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so the grief, we need the grief to actually access the love in a way, if we can put it that way. And I just saw Anne in that moment of grief as she recounted the fact that she actually mistreated herself.
Yeah.
As though, So I just wanted to point that out and help people to see that they actually are going to do that to themselves, and they need to spot it. And it's by noticing it and spotting it that it can be undone.
Yeah. And I'll be emotionally vulnerable. Yeah, I did. You absolutely picked up on that, and I was choked up, and I still will be, because I consider all those younger parts of me to still be me. I'm still young me. So when I'm angry at 25-year-old Anne,
it's not fair, is it?
Still 5-year-old Anne, right? It's still Dot is still there.
Very profound.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing that I came to. Maybe I don't ever like some of the things that I did at that age, but compassion is not the same as agreement, right?
Exactly.
So I don't have to be in agreement with what I did or the person that I was to offer compassion and understanding for why I did it. Or for why I acted the way I was. And that was kind of a key for me too. And it's been sort of a key when I coach others, is for them, because a lot of people will get stuck if they did something, bad, or that they're ashamed of or embarrassed by in their life. And really, you don't have to agree with what you did, or even,
But empathy for the person suffering.
To not understand.
Yeah.
You can understand what drove you to it. You were just trying to live life, right? You were just trying to survive at that time with the data that you had. And that's where we go.
Good point.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is grief when I think about how mean I was, because again, that was Dot I was being mean to. And she's had enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
And probably people were mean enough to her in the beginning anyway. She didn't need to add to the meanness as the adult.
No, absolutely.
And I want to just say to the audience, to the listeners, this is Anne's process. It doesn't mean everyone has to go through every step of their childhood and accept. This is just, I mean, you know, even Joe Dispenza doesn't deal with, he's like, just accept your childhood. And, you know, Gabor Mate is like, just accept the experience of what you experienced. And, you know, like everyone has their way, but it's the acceptance. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that you can accept it. And if you need to go to each corner of that childhood and rescue that person, you can do it with an incredible bit of compassion of, there's many ways to do it. That's what I'm saying. The fact that you're, you know, really going back there to Dot and being 25 and is a beautiful process. And that's what you needed to do. And then even acknowledge that you were stuck and then be with Dot at 25 and acknowledge that, wow, bad, good, judging, not like profound. And it just made me think of one of our guests was a woman who healed herself of cancer, remarkable story. And she came out with that she didn't make any decision now as an adult without talking to her little girl. That's how she's managing and living cancer-free, because that was her way of dealing with it. My little girl is my pain, was my cancer, and now in order to be healthy, I have a relationship with my little girl, and I don't do anything without discussing with her. And I thought that was fascinating. Mm-hmm. You know, and some other people, you know, and so we all have our way of integrating, right, Rose? Integrating the past to the present and healing.
Well, the little girl goes away then, you see. So in actual fact, it's to integrate the little girl and let the little girl go, because the little girl's just a ghost. But coming back to Anne, could you actually now, I didn't talk about this before we've come on air, but can you actually now understand it, or help the audience understand that you're not a machine and that you can't just always drive that machine, and pushing yourself, push to get the right answers, to do the right thing, to be that good as, it's like calling yourself a machine, isn't it? I'm going to get through this. Can you just gather that idea so that people can see that they're not a machine and that they can actually have that sense of compassion for what they had to do to survive? And you're talking about being a young mother and drinking and things like that because it's a stress relief. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to back up a minute. I will answer that, Rose. I just wanted to back up a minute, though. In even starting to, if someone is stuck at a really difficult age or a difficult time in their life that they don't, like what they see and they don't want to go there. Again, I like to work in little stages, like not, you don't have to like get all the way to self-love, right? Like, can you just see what the actual truth was? Not the exaggerated, I'm so horrible, everything I did was so horrible. I'm a selfish person. I'm unfeeling of others. Did I act in some selfish ways? Probably, right? But that's very different than I'm selfish, right? So can we, lose the labels and really work with the truth? And then can we get to a point where we, instead of acceptance, can we just tolerate ourselves at that age? Right? Was I tolerable? And of course, I was tolerable. I was hardworking. I was, had a lot of very redeeming qualities along with that. I had friendships. I had a marriage. I was a good employee, etc. So there was a lot of redeeming parts of 25, along with the self-condemnation that I was giving myself. So those are some other little steps that a person can put in to help them if they're having trouble with self-acceptance. So now to your machine question. You know, we are rewarded in Western society for kind of being a machine, right? Being a productivity machine. I was a businesswoman. I was a young blonde woman in a man's world. There was no way I was going to show emotion, because it didn't matter whether you were extremely happy, extremely sad, angry. It didn't matter what emotion you showed. You were labeled. You were either labeled bitchy, you were labeled hormonal, you were labeled in some way. And so I learned in the business world to be very stoic and sort of machine-like in all my ways. And I brought that forward in parenting.
Yes.
Nothing could really ruffle me. I was that calm. I've got it. It's okay. We can handle it. Parent.
What control?
I didn't have an outlet, and that's good. That was good. That's not a bad strategy in business. That's not a bad strategy when you're dealing with little kids who are throwing a tantrum. You can't throw a tantrum too. They can't see their adult losing it when they're losing it. That's not helpful. Yeah. However, I had no strategies in my own private time to unleash that. I had nothing that I did for myself to allow my own.
There's a great point, and I'm going to interrupt you and give you Elise's question.
Yes, perfect.
I thought of you, Elise. God bless you. I thought of you just about 5 minutes ago before you questioned, and I'm so happy that you spoke up. All the honor to you for reaching out. You can read the question here. I'll read it to you. She does say, Dr. Tovah has suggested to me that self-love and self-compassion might be what she's missing in her healing journey. She's listening to your talk, and she doesn't understand what it really means.
Sure. That's a great question.
How do you
probably define what it looks like.
And I just want to say, this beautiful woman, Elise is a nurse. So if anyone knows what's up, but to bring it into your own internal, like Rose said, it's like a disconnect for her. And we understand that, Elise.
That's a really good question. And so it's going to look different probably for everybody, but some similarities. So for me, self-acceptance came first, and then self-compassion. So acceptance for me is, I am a three-dimensional person. I am happy. I am joyful. I love others, and I hate, and I am jealous, and I'm vindictive, and I'm angry, and I'm bored, and I'm excited. And so instead of being sort of that two-dimensional and only, having happy and calm and, reliable, those would have been descriptors I would have given myself. I still have all those descriptors. I am still happy. I'm still reliable. And I have all those other descriptors. And they're okay. Before, I was integrated. I knew I was jealous, but I shut that down. I was like, I would turn it around to somebody else. It's their fault. Look at the world today. And, I was just, sort of bitter about some of my emotions. So it is self-acceptance and self-compassion to me. I'm hearing taking responsibility for who you are. It's more about really appreciating all those layers, right? Wanting all those layers and appreciating them. Yes. Which doesn't mean, when I say vindictive, it doesn't mean I go out and scratch someone's car who makes me angry, right? But it means that I have the emotion of vindictiveness when I have been wronged, or one of my babies has been wronged, really swell up in me, whoosh up in me. and then recede, right?
Judge.
And
Then you judge
feel that vindictiveness. I can feel that, I want to strike back. And it doesn't mean I do strike back, but I can feel it and know that it's okay. I'm not a bad person. That is actually what I want.
So I'm just thinking maybe you're in touch with those feelings more than Elise may be. And how would she get to that place of understanding the players? How would she get to that place?
Yeah. So I don't know Elise at all. But you said she was a nurse. And
she's a nurse and a mother and a wife and,
right,
struggling with some chronic pain. So
with chronic pain, right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess here's a person who gives and gives and gives to others, and somewhere deep down inside is not given enough to herself.
Precisely.
And and I know that because I was that. So, done there.
So how does she give to herself? So here we go again.
Right. Journaling worked beautifully for me, and I do recommend it for a lot of folks. However, if someone has issues with writing and they don't like writing and they don't want to do that, and they were a bad writer in school and it brings up trauma, then you don't have to journal. You don't. I am not just journaling is the only way. It worked beautifully for me, worked beautifully for a lot of people. Sarno recommended it, but I don't think you have to either. But there needs to be some time that you spend with yourself alone in some contemplation, whether you're writing about it or whether you're, just sitting by a lake and reflecting in silence, where there's no demands on you and you're doing it, on a regular basis. I mean, most days of the week is what I always say. It doesn't. I did it almost every day, but some people can get
even if it's a minute every hour. It's a minute every hour.
It is very helpful to give yourself a little package of time where you can go where you need to go without being interrupted by others. And having to perform for somebody or take care of someone else's needs or be responsive to somebody, so that you can actually go where you need to go. Because, if you're trying to do like a 5-minute break at work and it's going to get interrupted and you can't undo that. You can't go where you need to go in 5 minutes at work because you're gonna know that you have to turn around and put on a face that's brave or calm or whatever your work demands. And so you're not going to be able to really go where you need to go, in my humble opinion. So I much prefer like a little package of time, whether it's 20 minutes or a half hour, that you can set aside for yourself. If you have a partner in your life, take your partner into your confidence and say, hey, I need to do this for me, right? I guarantee you, in the grand scheme of how much time you're spending on stuff, it's a lot less time than all those doctors you're going to.
It is. And I must interrupt and say,
right, get off of social media, right. And give yourself a 20 minutes. I must
interrupt and say, because I'm just too excited, because I want to say it's not going to feel comfortable, and that means you're doing it right.
That's right.
Talk about that, Anne.
That's right, exactly, and that's why I don't think that doing 5 minutes at work, which doesn't mean that you're not. Once you get good at it, once you get good at feeling your emotions and knowing that it's safe to feel them, then you're going to be able to have that minute where, oh, I am pissed about that. Look at what she did. And whoosh, here it comes. And you're like, well, look at there. I'm really angry. My face is burning and I want to lash out and I'm all tense about it. And then whoosh, it goes away. But that is not where we start. I mean, that's not where I started. I was totally unaware of that I even had all these emotions in me. So, I needed that time alone for myself to really start excavating in a very, very safe way where I wasn't.
Could I add to that also, Anne? Could I add to that when people have that time alone, they immediately diversify and they think about the fact that they haven't done this or they haven't done that. So they have to actually tolerate. They've got to be able to tolerate. And sometimes they can't tolerate 15 minutes. So they have to tolerate 5 minutes of it and allow the diversification to come in, distract them, let it go out. So as they give themselves that time by the lake, in the bedroom, wherever, in the garden, in the stairwell, if you're in an apartment.
Driving in the car.
The car is
Yes.
a great escape place.
It is.
If you have a car,
Yes.
it's a great place to go escape.
Yeah, yeah. But recognize that 20 minutes, half an hour seems like a lifetime when you're on your own with yourself. Because this is what Anna's talking about, being present with yourself and your feelings. And as Anne said, doesn't matter what the feelings are. They're just feelings and they're in you. And nobody else knows you've got them except you. So thank you for that. But always remember, you're going to want to run away from them because that's the nature of it.
And it will start to feel more comfortable. It will start to feel more, okay, I can't wait to have my 5 minutes because I want to learn out of my comfort zone until it becomes comfortable. And that's neuroplasticity.
Yeah. And then 10 minutes, half an hour, an hour. Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to add that because that passage comes through all the time of diversification, moving away. When I've done this for 5 minutes, well, then I've got to go and do that, or someone's waiting for me. All of that self-talk.
And can you guarantee? We can say that it will become comfortable. It does become a habit, and it becomes something that you begin to give to yourself.
It does. And I'll also say in this whole self-compassion journey, I also learned to forgive others in my life on a more deep level. So let's go back to that 25-year-old girl. Remember that I told you that I struggled with that age. And one of the things I listed was that I drank too much. Well, my father drank too much. So in learning to forgive myself for drinking too much and why I did it, I learned to forgive him. And yes, Rose, I'm emotional again. That's a real beautiful thing because
it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing just to see, and I, maybe like why he did that and how he misused alcohol. And to really kind of understand it at a base level, because I did too. I had that same drive to misuse alcohol at that age. I didn't have children yet, so that was good. But that was me, and maybe that was just lucky too. I didn't have the life that he had before that either. So yeah. So when you learn to forgive yourself, it's a dance with forgiving others, right? So when I have to learn the mistakes, when I learn to forgive the mistakes I made as a mother, I learned to forgive my own mother. Mm. So it's a dance of compassion to self and to those that you loved in your life.
Beautiful.
You give the other people freedom, don't you?
Yes.
In your own heart. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then that burden is all gone now.
It's right? Beautiful, isn't it?
Those burdens are all gone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They've, and like Michael Brown will say from the presence process, it's like, they've integrated into your present, and now you're honoring your father by being a better mother, a different mother, honoring your mother by, so there's this sort of healing.
Right. Well, my mother is 96 and still living, so I get to honor her currently.
Wow.
And I think that she knows. I don't think she knows all of what I've been through, but she knows that our relationship in the last few years of her life is better than it ever was, ever. Beautiful. And what a gift that is. What a gift that is from her 92 to 96 and my late 50s, right?
Beautiful, beautiful.
You'll enjoy Look at Us Now, Mother, a little movie. that Gail, we had Gail on a little while ago, and
Yeah.
she's done a movie about her mother and forgiveness, and it's just so poignant. It's
it's important.
because it's a very, we as mothers, we know we've done it ourselves, and then we don't forgive our mothers for having done it. I mean,
well, I always said I wasn't going to make those mistakes. I'd make my own ones, and that is exactly what I did. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I didn't make her mistakes. I just made my own.
That's right. Yes, they might have been similar, but they were yours. Yeah.
They're some of them were similar, some of them were polar opposite, but they're all going to be right. Some, I peopled all over it. That's what I always say. We peopled all over it. So anyway, the self-compassion. Once back to the chronic pain, right? We're here. Once I really started with the self-compassion and treating myself with more compassion, now my journaling took a whole different turn, right? So now I would still talk about some, a current day stressor, but there was not this beating of myself up and how I responded to it. It really more was a stress relief to then journal rather than actually adding more.
And just in case anyone just came in the show, we have some listeners. So, you did some chemical, you are not just talking about journaling self-compassion. I mean, chemical reactions change and your pain went away. So you're studying that. I mean, this is not just like pain goes away, right? Or you can accept your pain more and then it goes away when these insights happen and they become habitual. Can you talk about that for you?
Yeah.
When the pain started to get less and less and less?
Yeah. And that is how it was. Exactly. It got less and less. That increased my belief, right? So a lot of times people will say you have to have 100% belief before your pain to go away. I didn't. I had enough belief to do the work and enough belief to really, get introspective and go there. I didn't have 100% belief. I still kind of thought there might be something wrong with that low back, right? And here's another thing. I made the quintessential error. I think Steve Ozanich talks about this error. I was one of them, where you think that all this other stuff is TMS, but this one spot isn't, right? I made that mistake, right? Like the fibromyalgia and the migraines and all that and the dizziness, that all was TMS. But the low back, no, that's because I have a bulging disc, right? I was that person, right? So, it's cute.
Lovely, beautiful.
But as I did this introspection and the self-compassion, and it became more of a integrated in my daily life, that I just treated myself better. Just everything kind of resolved all at once, right? So now I'm having less symptoms, so therefore I have less fear of the symptoms, which helps even more. And now I'm a believer even more, which helps more. And now I'm giving myself even more self-compassion because look, it worked. And so, and I'm doing my introspection. For me, it was journaling, even more, sort of with more abandon and insight and lack of fear of what I might uncover. And that just got out more emotion, and I was fine with it. And so it all just started.
You found the monster under the bed.
It all unraveled, but it was slow. I mean, I tell people it took time. It did take time. Some of the stuff resolved right away, but some of the, the low back thing, whatever symptom, I always tell people, whatever symptom you fear the most, that's the one that's going to stick around the longest.
Wow.
Right. So one of my weird symptoms was that I had phantom smells. It's a real thing where you smell. I smelled old stale cigarette smoke when there was no cigarette smoke or no anyone smoking anywhere near me. I would smell smoke. And that that symptom I had no fear of because there was no pain attached. It was just sort of annoying, right? It's like, this is a weird thing. So it was all sort of, I never saw a doctor.
What you just said, that was profound. Like you're you're making the attachment. If I'm fearing it, I'm attached to it.
Right. Wow. But the low back, that was the one that was the most fearful because that was the one that paralyzed me. Right? I couldn't get out of bed, remember? So of course, that's the one that stuck around the longest. Of course, that's the one that was the most fun. And by the way, it's gone too. So right now, my life is wonderful. Physically, I routinely hike 5 miles a day. I go out dancing with my husband once or twice a week. I do physically almost anything I want to do. Again, I'm a 59-year-old woman, so some stuff is just too heavy, right? As Dr. Sinai would say, if you can't lift it, then that's when it's too heavy. But yeah, I'm just enjoying life and loving where we are here now. Doesn't mean I don't occasionally get a little flare of something, and sometimes they're really humorous. And sometimes they're very poetic, like, I know why that symptom is, right? That, an example of, I was afraid to go do a water thing on an ocean, and I suddenly got my dizziness back for one day.
Wow.
Because I was afraid of doing this water ocean thing. And so I had to take seasick pills, which is the same medicine I took when I was had all that chronic dizziness. And I'm like, wait a minute, and I wasn't even on the ocean. I
love that. Wait a minute.
No.
You're onto it. I love it. You're onto it.
Wait a minute. Why is this today?
Today I'm dealing with here.
I was fine yesterday, and today I'm dizzy because I'm going to go do this water thing that I'm worried about. So, yeah, cute, isn't it? But I'm, again, very compassionate. I'm just like, oh, I know, I see you. Yeah, okay, you don't need to do that. And by the way, I did do the water thing. I had a great time, and didn't hurt me at all. And the dizziness magically melted away somewhere in that ocean.
Exactly. So, I just want to add that as Anne was talking about her change in her life, what she's done is she's broken that intergenerational trauma that's happened. The trauma that Anne experienced growing up, it might have been subtle, but it was trauma in some form. But what she's done is she's changed that story now for her own family. And that's one of the wonderful things about the fact that this chronic pain, when we address it and open it up and see how it's driven us, we can then change the future for the rest of our family and friends. And that is always the most wonderful part about, like, for me, for being a therapist, that people have life-changing experiences, that they no longer criticize themselves, they no longer put themselves down, and they no longer blame other people for the problem, because they know that it's a problem, a reactionary problem, rather than a responding problem. So thank you, Anne. It's just been lovely. It really has.
I wanted to say one thing, because I know someone like Elise, who's really trying to do the work and doing a lot of reading, they feel like, oh, well, how come Anne can get better and I can't? Can you just address that? Because it does happen where we compare ourselves, and that's the bittersweet of some of these pages where we're bringing people who are on their healing journey and in their process. And I want people to know hope is chemical, belief is chemical. You're in your process because there's still work you have to do. You're not in a bad place. You're in the place you're at. That tomorrow's another day, and you're in, that pain can be a gift. This can all be, there's a lot of ways to frame it. So can you just address that to some of our listeners?
Yeah, I will.
To compare, not to, but it's not.
Yeah, and
it's abusive to compare yourself to someone else. It's not nice.
Well, a lot of the what we do, being driven and high achieving and perfectionist and goodist, it's rewarded in the world, right? It's gotten us where we are,
and
right?
it's rewarded in our own heads as well, not to mind the world.
Right, that too, right? So but it is rewarded sometimes monetarily, sometimes socially. It's it can be external validation as well, and so just kind of recognizing that you're not trying to change basic personality. I'm still a driven person. I'm still pretty much perfectionist. I just don't beat myself up for when I make mistakes. I don't beat myself up when I see those perfectionistic tendencies. I'm just like, oh, look, there it is. There's Anne. There she is.
Observing it. That's all you need to do.
And there is hope. I like to measure, I think one of probably the key things that's helpful here is to measure success in something other than just symptom relief. So success is a lot of different things, and symptom relief is a byproduct of all those other things.
Very good.
So if you just get symptoms, then you're not gonna be able to reward yourself with all the good stuff along the way, because that's sort of like the last thing you get is symptom relief. So are you showing up for yourself for whatever your program is, whatever you've decided your program is, every day, or however often you say you're going to? So for me, I journaled, my goal was 6 days a week. I have clients and I say, can you do it 4 days a week? But whatever it is for you, whatever you've decided it is for you, are you showing up for yourself? Right. And if you are, then that is a reward, and you have succeeded. That is success. So start measuring, have you moved away from monitoring the symptoms all the time? Have you moved away from using the physical crutches that we're used to, like going to chiropractic? Sorry, going to chiropractors that don't know what they're doing, and the round of MRIs and et cetera, and all that fear. Have you taken a step away from sort of all the symptom monitoring, not perfection, but just a step away, right? Just a step away. Have you added some sort of activity into your life that you do enjoy, right? So
that's a very important component of it all.
Right, right. Yeah, I added, interestingly, one of the journals that I did was to write to Dot and ask Dot what she needed. And then Dot was supposed to write in a non-dominant hand. It was journaling with your non-dominant hand. And I am not at all ambidextrous. I'm completely right-handed. I can barely wave with my left hand. And so Dot had to be very, very concise with what she told me she needed. And she said she wanted to play. And that's all she said. And I was like, anything else? No, play more. That's all Dot wanted. And wow. So I was like, well, yeah, I guess so. I have no play time. I mean, at the time I had zero play time that I did for everything I did for someone else, or to be responsible, right? Even going to the gym, I did it to keep myself healthy so I could do all my responsibilities, right? Or that I could look good. Right. So it was, none of it was doing it there was no joy. There was no
nothing
joy.
For fun. Yeah.
Nothing for fun.
Yeah.
And can you answer Estella's question?
Sure.
Have you done specific trauma work? If so, which one? Estella's exploring at the moment the connection between CPTSD and chronic pain.
I have not done specific trauma work. Interestingly, that Rose mentioned childhood trauma and breaking that childhood trauma, and just a big heart for you for saying that, Rose, because it took me a long, long time to even see that I had trauma. I would not have identified that. I had what I called half losses. So instead of seeing them as a true loss, I saw them as a half loss. And so that was a whole, another item of discovery is, can I not have a true loss? I mean, what's the deal there, right? So So I haven't done any specific trauma work, although I would say the journey into the self-discovery uncovered a lot of trauma that I had survived.
You've ignored.
And had told myself was not trauma, right?
Yeah.
For various reasons. Sometimes it was an adult telling me that it wasn't a problem. In the case of my father drinking, my mother never acknowledged it and denied it, and denies it to this day. So we grew up, sort of denying it. And others was just, I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to have that happen to me. It was wrapped in that kind of perfectionist, calm, I'm good, everything's fine, sort of exterior. So I didn't want to admit any of it. So good question.
Really, really beautiful. And it's really important. I mean, Michael Galinsky talks to us a lot about big T's and little T's. So how as a child, Rose, and like, how do we judge? Like, the trauma is big, little? It's our experience is big or little. Like, we judge it. We're like, it's not a big deal. Who cares? Like, who are we to judge? We're so involved in the trauma.
Okay. If you always look at the trauma, is if someone was there to reassure you, the trauma is manageable. But often in childhood, and if we talk about alcohol intake, for example, the dad or the mum, whoever, the parent or whoever they're interacting with, is, loving and beautiful, and they're high on their alcohol, and then all of a sudden they switch, and they notice that you should have gone to bed, or that you should have done your homework, or whatever. So the child then becomes super aware that this good time is going to end, and it's going to end with a slice, and they're going to get into trouble. So the vasovagal system is on full alert, waiting for this good time to end. And this is often, how people will describe it. So that hypervigilance then remains in our bodies. And then it's almost like we're on the starting block, day and night, waiting for any good times that we have that are going to be sliced away from us. So, so noticing that and that hypervigilance, then the body can settle just gently and gradually. So,
Wow, good example.
And it's no wonder then that you see, when you learn things like this, it's no wonder I have joy foreboding, right? Like when I'm joyful, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, that makes a lot of sense, right? So again, more compassion can be sent to me all along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
When you say more compassion, it's sort of like looking at that child or that adult or that parent or whatever within us and saying, with empathy, yes, it's been a struggle. And in that, allowing that grief to come up about the struggle, and in the grief becomes the care. Remember, when we've got grief, we're always grieving over something we loved.
Right.
And, like, I love that book, Sweet Sorrow, because if we've got sorrow, it's something for what we've lost that we've loved. And it's a lovely combination of our emotions that can be gathered together and honored.
So true. And so what would you say if we were to wind up for the night, and as Rose starts
in the morning
and my eyes start drooping at this time. So what I want to say is what would you want to say to the listeners? What would you want to leave them with, besides all the incredible, profound insights you've been talking about the last hour? What would you like to say?
I would like to say that if you suspect that you might have mind-body symptoms, and you've already done enough, the research, and you've already learned how the brain works, and you think you fit this category, then stop researching and start going on the internal journey.
Start work.
Yes, and figure out what kind of program or self-discovery method you want to use. There's a lot of them out there, and a lot of them are great. I think it's almost more about your personality, to be very honest with you, of which is going to gel with you. So I like to write, so journaling worked for me. If you don't like to write, don't choose that one. But you know, kind of do a little bit of gathering of information of what kind of different programs there are, and then really get yourself immersed in one and stick with it. You know, I see a lot of people who try it for a month, their symptoms get worse, and then they go running away. And if ever there was proof that you're on the right track, it's that your symptoms got worse.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So this is your sign. That's your sign that what you're doing is the right thing. Because mine went bonkers at first.
Wow.
Great. Like all this old stuff firing up. I'm like, great. Now I've done it. And I added depression too. I'm like, oh, this is lovely. This is not a good trade. Getting rid of pain and adding depression, not a good trade. But I kept with it. I kept with it. And then it all unraveled for me, like I talked about before. So find your program. You've got enough info. Find your program. Stick with it. Make a promise to yourself. Stick with it. And I'm talking.
And if you can't stick with it, forgive yourself. Be compassionate.
Well said.
There you go.
Yes.
Start again the next day. But yeah, that's what I would say. It will work for you.
Yeah. Yes, Rose.
Can we bring up Estelle's comment, because she's confirmed. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The chaos at home, therefore the lack of safety in relationships, and that is so important. You know, the fear of emotional closeness, because once you become close to someone, and I'm thinking of that, you know, happy-go-lucky, you know, alcohol sort of fueled sort of fun, and then all of a sudden the slice, and it's unsafe.
So everything feels like a threat now.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get that safety, but you're aware of it, Estella, and this is the beauty. Now you have to apply that awareness to.
Yeah. It could be your parents bickering with one another. It could be financial problems that were in the home. It could be a whole variety of things. I've got somewhere on my computer an ACEs questionnaire. If anyone's interested in having it here, take the ACEs quiz. Yes. It might help them to sort of consolidate why they've got somatic pain.
Right.
Because I would like to see that quiz modernized. Is what I would like to see that quiz modernized.
Yes,
get modernized because
it's been extended. One of our early people were talking, like he's done research into that area. We probably should have him back if he'd come back.
Rose, we're going to be here for another 30, 40 years, so we'll have everybody.
Oh, good. Right.
Rose, I trigger Rose when I say that.
Absolutely. Yes. Into our old age. Yeah. I said to my daughter the other day, oh, well, you know, I'm pretty middle-aged. She said, what, Mum? Don't you mean old age?
I don't want to hear that.
They're heartless, these kids. They'll get there too. Just wait.
Yes, that's right.
I have a grandson who's 6, and he always makes fun of me. So it's but he's humorous when he does it. So
yeah,
we are aging gracefully. That's for sure here.
And you know what? Sure. Speaking of that, I play more robustly with my grandchild than I did with my children because of my pain is less.
I second that. My
pain is less now than it was when I was in my 30s.
More mature. I'm just more.
I mean, I'm crawling around on the floor with him. I did some floor play when when my kids were little, but I'd get up pretty quick, and now I just sit there for hours and hours.
It's hard. I mean, it's aging. It's to keep that connected child play, which Dr. Hanscom talks about in his work. How important it is really about acceptance that I'm too serious when I'm it's all about back again. Yeah. Compassion and love and accepting the little child and integrating. I mean, really, it's beautiful. And we can have you back about many topics. And it's wonderful that you're doing this work and helping others. You are really an inspiration. And
Thank
we really appreciate you coming on
Giving
and
us your time.
and connecting like the way, and Rose's eagle eye to find you out there. She said, "Oh, you're friends with Anne." I said, "Well, I don't know everybody I'm friends with. Who's Anne?" And now we're friends in the flesh. In the flesh.
Online, there's online friends, and then there's you've talked to them friends, right? So
Right.
It's a weird age we live in that way.
It is. Yeah.
Rose and I are privileged to meet you and have you speak so beautifully and so wisely.
Wisely is the key word. Yeah.
So we'll meet again. Remember these faces. We'll meet again.
I welcome that.
Rose, have a wonderful day. I love you. And take good care. Good night, everybody. Don't forget, if you haven't seen this or your friends want to see it, it'll be on YouTube tomorrow. And we'll be famous tomorrow on our YouTube channel. Subscribe. Good night, good morning, good afternoon. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.